Hello, hello, hello. Your host, Cy Smith, coming to you on a second Saturday of the month of August. Every second Saturday of the month is Tanzania, the flag behind me to my left. They're on once a month duty every second Saturday of the month. In the middle here is the Djibouti flag. They're on tour for the whole month of August. In Chicago. This is the 60617 zip code. And in Chicago, this is the 60629 zip code. I always start out every interaction with the structure and the system. So when I talk about what's linked to what, that's our structure. And when I talk about when they are on duty, if you will, I say every second Saturday is here. That's our system. So we have structure and system with everything we do. Again, my name is Cy Smith. I'm your host here. I'm recording this so that we can later use this video as a training video for other people who may never have heard about what we do. So I'm the founder of the National Block Club University. The focus of National Block Club University is about the shooting and killing in urban America. Totally unacceptable. We've been at it, be 30 years next November 20th. Wednesday, November 20th, 2024 will make 30 years that we've been on this front line dealing with the shooting and killing of Black people, primarily by Black people. So HSN stands for Habits, Schedule, Network. It's all lifestyle. We believe that's a big component of the shooting and killing in Black America is our lifestyle. But we recognize the structures and systems that play that help put us in the situation where unfortunately we're shooting and killing ourselves. So we acknowledge all the areas that contribute. So here today, we have part of our system is the weekly conventions. So literally every single weekend, we're having a different conversation around a different subject. So last weekend, which was August 5th, it was the U.S. political convention. And all of these conventions slash jubilees are for Black people. We be very articulate and clear that what we do is for the most uninterrupted human suffering group in the world, which is Black African people. So that's what we focus on. We love everybody. We welcome everyone. So that's not a separator. We just know we have to help those who are the most targeted group in the world. All right. Having said that, today's conversation is our military. You're going to walk away with some insight that is going to help you to at least know how best to move forward when we consider our military people and the safety in our neighborhoods. We're in 20 cities around the United States of America. I'm going to read those cities off to you so you would know that as well. We start out with Gary, Indiana. Gary is our headquarters for all things administration and all of our conventions. Chicago is the global headquarters for everything that we do. Atlanta is our headquarters for all police and firefighters. So that's the Gary, Chicago, Atlanta region. Hence my shirt, Gary, Chicago, Atlanta region. We have Detroit, St. Louis, and Milwaukee region, which is Detroit is our headquarters for all things dealing with construction. St. Louis is our headquarters dealing with all things dealing with lawyers and legal. Milwaukee is our headquarters dealing with all things dealing with graphic design, photography, DJing, the creative arts. Then we have the Miami, Birmingham, and New Orleans region. This is our today is once upon Tuesday, 60617. And St. Paul, Minnesota is our headquarters for all things dealing with politics. So last weekend, they were the focal point because it was our annual US political convention. And then Cleveland is our headquarters for all our dentists and doctors. Then we have the LA San Diego region, LS region. LA is our headquarters for entertainment. San Diego is our headquarters for farming. We have the Dallas Memphis region. Dallas is our headquarters for nursing, and Memphis is our headquarters for journalism. The last region is the Boston, Philadelphia, DC, Norfolk, and New York region, all East Coast. So Boston is our headquarters for all things dealing with science and research. Philadelphia is our headquarters for all things dealing with investigations, missing persons, unsolved cases. We have DC as our headquarters for all things dealing with businesses. Then we have Norfolk dealing with all things dealing with our animals, pets. And then the final one is New York City dealing with all things dealing with engineering, dealing with aeronautical, and dealing with technology. So what I shared with you was our 20 cities and what each one of them cities specializes in. So no matter when you watch this video, you will know what your city is specialized with doing when it comes to us. All right. So what the goal is for each one of those cities to send 2 people to the convention. And that's what should happen in a perfect world. Next weekend, it's the U.S. Karate Convention, which is August 19th. And then we have the U.S. Marketing Convention at the 4th Saturday of this month, which is August 26th. On the lineup for next month, September 2nd, the Firefighters Convention. September 9th is the Barbers and Beautician Convention. September 16th is the Poetry Convention. And then September 23rd is the Arts Convention. So I just gave you the kind of the, what the future looks like here. So our topic today is going to be broken up into 4 sections for 5 military branches. 4 sections for 5 military branches. We will take breaks. So the first section is going to deal with the Army. So that's going to run now until 10:15. Take our intermission. When we come back, we're going to go over the Marines, U.S. Marines. We'll take a break after the Marines. Then we're going to go into the Air Force. These are all 15-minute intervals. And after the Air Force, then we're going to go into the Navy and the Coast Guard, since they're both dealing with water. And then that'll conclude our session today. Ideally, it'll go 1 hour. We don't have to go 1 hour. It depends on how much information I can get out to you. But that'd be the ideal scenario, that everyone gets 15 minutes. And if we was in person, it'd be the whole weekend. So let me go and remind the people who are watching, the reason National Black Code University exists is because of our the violence in our neighborhoods. We have to stop this shooting and killing. Unacceptable what we're dealing with on the violence level. In order to do that, we need to be organized in formation to get certain things done. So what we've done here is we said we're going to ask and do an inventory of all the residents, block by block. We're going to find out who are inside or used to belong to the U.S. military, who are the veterans. And so by doing that inventory, it allows us to be in position to pool together people and have this annual conversation around making our neighborhoods safer, more vibrant, and stronger. And in this case, our military veterans. So let's get right at it. What we've done here is we've linked every one of our kindergarten through 12th graders to a different group of military service veterans. So the way the purpose it is so we can share the burden of making sure our children are surrounded by positive, upstanding people who formerly served the military, to promise to protect the land and the country. So that quality of person is what we want to make sure our young people are linked to. So all of our veterans, and also people in active duty, it's harder for active duty because they are active duty, but especially our veterans and mainly are the ones we ask to help support these grades so that the young people can always have layers of support. That's ultimately what we're doing here. So let's go to it. The Army, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marines, Navy, and the Navy, and I said Coast Guard already. So I start with me, I'm a Navy vet. All 9th graders nationwide are linked to Navy personnel. So all Navy veterans, you're linked in to 9th graders. We want to see you hold it down with ninth graders forever. That's a big deal. We have the Marines linked in with third graders all over the nation. So they have the third graders. Matter of fact, I need to pull this up so you guys can see this versus me just speaking. I want you guys to see it as I'm speaking this. So U.S. Marines, no matter where you are, veteran or not, we got you linked, and we're asking you to hold it down for our third graders. This is what it looks like. So it's a lot going on here. I'm just going to read to you specifically. And if you go right here where you see third graders at, you see Marines there. You see Marines there. So all U.S. Marines have third graders. All right. So now we go over, and now we're going to look at fourth graders. And as you see here with the fourth graders, police is part of safety, but that's not who we want to focus on right now. Sorry about that. Let's go to our sixth graders and all Army veterans, all Army personnel, not just the veterans. So the Army has sixth graders. So any parent of a sixth grader, if there's Army veterans in your family, on your block, in your neighborhood, we want to have a conversation with them so they can see and hopefully buy into them covering the sixth graders and making sure that their needs are met this whole full school year. You go up to seventh grade, you see that's linked to Air Force. You can see that, Air Force. So all of our Air Force, just like the Army got sixth graders, y'all got the seventh graders. That's a big deal. We want to definitely make sure that we're supporting them as well. And I told you already about the ninth graders, but also when it comes to the Coast Guard are the ones that help us with our 10th graders. Okay, so let's zoom out so you guys can see the bigger picture. The bottom line, we're getting information so that we can make sure that we have overall protection and support to our parents and the actual students. So the students benefit the most, but the parents benefit because that burden is lifted of them having to do everything themselves. Okay, so that's how that's set up and structured. So now what I'm gonna do, because we're at the 13 mark, I'm gonna just get ready to go over a little bit more with the Army. I think I said I was gonna start out with the Army. I may have said Marines, but it makes sense to start out with the alphabetical order of the Army. So since the Army personnel have the veterans, I want to read something to you with the Army personnel. And we do have a list of our Army actual people that we know. I won't say your full name because you may not want people to know, but we got a Leroy in Gary, Indiana, a Courtney in Gary, Indiana. These are Army veterans. In Chicago, we got a Miss Price, veteran Army personnel in Chicago. We got, I was about to say his name, but we got Shannon. He's a Army personnel. Whew. We have Mr. Wilkerson, Army personnel. We have quite a bit of Air Force. I was a little shocked at that, but yeah. We have also Michael Smith. Michael Cool. So it's cool. He's Army in Chicago. Who else we have here? We have a Colonel Daggett. All right. He's in Indiana. We got Colonel Liggins as well. These are high-ranking people. So shout out to you guys for being, serving our country that way. And then 21% of all active duty, this is according to the 2020 Army report, 21% of all active duty personnel in the U.S. Army are African American. That's 1/5. That's a little bit more than 1/5. That's a lot of people. 15% are in the National Guard. That's a little bit lower. We're 13% of the population, so it's closer to our consistent with our overall population. And then 21% of us are in the Army Reserve. That got me thinking a little bit. I got questions from my Army people on why you think that many people would be in the reserve. What's the benefits of being in the reserve versus active duty? So that's our Army. Now, because right now I got to go to break, but I want to finish this out with our Army personnel before we go to break. So what we've done, because our focus is anti-violence, we said on each block in high crime neighborhoods, how can we organize the block so that they have sustainable capacity to make sure the block is not being met with violence? So what we did, we took all Army veterans, no matter where they are. We say, in addition to committing to academically sixth graders, can you commit on certain blocks that we assign to deal with the home invasions or kidnappings? So out of all the violent crimes that happen in the neighborhood, we want you as Army veterans to concentrate on the home invasion and kidnappings. And I probably need to read this so it can make sense to you for the rest of them. All Air Force veterans want you to focus on vandalism, because we know that's the gateway to other crime. All Coast Guard, they're going to deal with the mental, psychological status of our people. Then the Marines are going to focus on burglaries. The martial arts professionals, missing persons, and human trafficking. The Navy go deal with restraining orders of people. So look at that. We got vandalism covered, home invasion, kidnappings covered, mental, psychological. We got burglary, we got missing persons, we got restraining orders. All these things add to people not being comfortable coming on your block and doing mischief because they see so much activity and people being busy and doing stuff. So when I come back, I'm gonna talk about the four corners, the house on the corner, and what we're doing on that. So let's go ahead and take this break, and we'll be right back. All right, everyone. Cy Smith again, coming to you on Saturday, August 12th, our military convention. We just spent a few minutes talking about the Army and the role the Army plays. Army have sixth graders. Army concentrate on home invasions and kidnappings on the block. And I'm gonna get into the Marines now. So the Marines have third graders linked to them academically. Marines on the different blocks concentrate on burglaries. And we already know burglaries lead to shootings that lead to other things. So making sure that burglars know, don't come on these blocks because these people here are organized. That boosts everyone's safety. So that's what the Marines are linked to. Now, what I want to do is talk about our Marines that we know of first, so I can get a shout out to our Marines. We got Mr. Gibson, East Chicago Marine. We got Mr. Mays, Gary Marines. We got Mr. Pugh. I can say his name because he owns restaurants. He's doing a big. Trez Pugh, the third. And then we got Mr. Mini Bandy. No, it's just Bandy because it's Bandy's uncle. We got Mr. Hampton. We got Mr. Kimbrough and Gary. We got Mr. Love in Chicago. These are some of our Marine veterans that we got. So head out to our Marines. And actually, James Shannon is Marines, not Army, like I said earlier. So let's switch him over. He just had a birthday last month. But what I just did is what we want everyone to be able to do. Know who's veterans on your block so you can link them in with what we do. And since we know Marines deal with burglaries, when it comes to burglaries, we'll have that list of where the burglaries are taking place, and we'll get that to our Marine veterans who's going to be serving, and helping us to get the word out when it comes to keeping your belongings safe and stuff like that. I get on my daughter all the time about leaving her phone and purse visible in the vehicle where any person that's looking to do mischief can easily break in and take it. So just clues and things of that nature so that our young people can be more, so all of our people can be more student aware. Now, because Marines are linked to third graders, think about third grade is when the evil ones start looking at test scores so they can build prisons. So you guys as Marines play a pivotal role in impacting them young people so that they can test well, so that they don't end up building prisons off of the scores of third graders. All right, so that's how important you guys have it when it comes to our young people here. Also, what I want to put out there for us to know when it comes to our Marines is the spelling bees is what we do with the third graders. So any monetary support you do outside of a book bag, school supplies, things of that nature that the family may need for the third grader, we do competitions throughout the year. And so one of the big competitions for our Marines when it comes to the third graders is a spelling bee competition. And these words rotate every single month so they don't get used to the words, but it challenges them and gives them something to do. And if we was all together in the convention at the Grant Theater for real, we'll be having that competition for money. They'll be able to win some money, but at least it'll be challenging them academically while they're out of school. So that's the Marines piece here. I'm gonna take another break here, pause, switch some stuff over. When I come back, we're gonna be on the agenda. We're gonna be talking about our Air Force. And after the Air Force, I'm gonna come back, then we're gonna talk about the Navy and the Coast Guard. I'm gonna do those together. Thank you. All right, everyone. Your host, Cy Smith, coming back to you. I want to read something to you before we migrate over to the Air Force. I want to read something to you about the Marines. And I know my Marine buddies are like hearing this. So this is on the U.S. Marines website. It says, for centuries, African-American contributions to society went unnoticed until Carter G. Woodson, a Harvard-educated African-American man, began celebrating Negro History Week in February 1925. So think about that, 1600s to 1925. The response to it was so overwhelming in 1976, the celebration expanded the entire month to the Law Library of Congress. During this time, the viability of including African Americans in the Marine Corps was a hotly debated topic. The Marine Corps established the Second Continental Congress November 10th, 1775, and did not allow African American men to join its ranks until June 1st, 1942. So 1775 to 1942. According to the Women's Marines Association, African American women didn't enlist until after the Marine Corps desegregated its recruiting training battalions in 1949. So that's a long time after the men was in, the women went in almost 84 months. 7 years. All African American men who enlisted in the Marine Corps between 1942 and 1949 completed their recruit training in North Carolina, Mining Ford Plant, which was a segregated training facility for African American men. Ain't that something? By September 1949, more than 20,000 African American men enlisted and completed their training in the segregated training facility at the Randall Library at the University of North Carolina. For those of y'all who know North Carolina's history, it's not a pretty one, even though it's one of the blackest states for Black people in the U.S. So that's the Marines. Wanted to get them they shout out before I moved on to the Air Force. So now getting going with the Air Force, let's go over this. All Air Force personnel linked to 7th graders. So you guys have our 7th graders. I have a daughter in 7th grade, so I have an interest in what you guys are going to do to support the 7th graders this year. So let me read to you some of our superstars that are 7th graders. I mean, some of our superstars who are in the U.S. Air Force. So you guys can give a shout out to them. Robert Buggs out of Gary, Indiana. I can say his name because he's a political guy. He ran for office. We have the Mr. Wright. He ran for political office, but I haven't talked to him, so I don't want to put his full name out there. He's in Gary. Mr. Ware is in Gary, Indiana. Also, we have brother Darnell. He's Air Force out of the Gary, Indiana. In Chicago, we got Miss Kennedy. I actually got married, so her new name now. We got Mr. Whittingham out of Roseland, 60628 zip code. We got Michael Strickland, Gary, Indiana. So forgot to give a shout out to him. I can say his name. He's public as well. Who else we have? Mr. White, Gary, Indiana. Who else we have here? So we had quite a bit of our Air Force personnel, and I appreciate them. I was scheduled to join the Air Force, and the city was too hot. I needed to get away. So the Navy said, we'll take you right away, whereas the Air Force had me on a delayed entry program. So anyway, all our Air Force people, y'all got 7th graders. Inside of the safety plan with the block formation, Air Force deals with all vandalism. Right now, all over this country, I believe it's a mixture of young people who are trying to defy authority, leadership. These are the non-Blacks going in and graffitiing up in Black neighborhoods. We quit graffitiing a long time ago, but now it's more, I'm seeing more graffiti going up. And that's a form of vandalism when you spray paint on someone's property that you don't pay taxes on. So the vandalism, by nipping that in the bud, you don't get to the bigger problems, which is what we want to do block by block. And we got all our Air Force veterans assigned to dealing with the vandalism on their block and inside the block surrounding them. So that's what the Air Force does. Let's see what we got here. Statement on the internet. It says here, this is a statement by the Air Force Inspector General. This was December 2020. It says, Black members of the Air Force and the Space Force are less likely to be promoted to higher enlisted or officer ranks. 1/3 of them believe that they don't get the same opportunities as their white peers. That's society. So we got to make sure that we're seeking and always pushing to get more people with power in higher ranks. You get a better quality product when you include a lot of different perspectives in one. All right, so that's it. I gave you vandalism. You guys got the beginning of the block. The Army is in the middle of the block along with the Coast Guard, and we got the Marines on the end and the Navy on the edge. Actually, I should have this up so I can watch it, but I guess you guys didn't hear nothing I said, so let me go over this real quick. So all of our Air Force veterans, you guys have 7th graders, and you guys deal with vandalism. So all Air Force veterans, you guys have 7th graders assigned to you, and you deal with vandalism when it comes to keeping the block safe. This was published for all Air Force. It says a report by the Air Force Inspector General. This was in December 2020. It said Black members of the Air Force and the Space Force are less likely to be promoted to higher enlisted or officer ranks, and that 1/3 of them believe that they don't get the same opportunities as their white peers. This came from NBC News in 2020. All right, and as I stated before, when you guys couldn't hear me, the bottom line is all of our Air Force personnel, we want to make super certain that we know who you are, where you are, and we want to get you information with what we're doing to make our neighborhoods safer. So again, here's some of our superstar Air Force. Darnell out of Gary, Indiana, he's Air Force. We have Robert out of Gary Air Force. We have Mr. Wright Air Force out of Gary. Mr. White Air Force out of Gary. Then we have, let's see here, Mr. Moore. He's Air Force out of out of Chicago. Mr. Let's see here. Nope, that's not him. All right, Mr. Buggs, Robert Buggs. I can say his name. He ran for office. He's out of Gary, Air Force guy. We have Norman out of 60628, Air Force guy. Charles 60643, Air Force guy. Chikara, won't say her last name. She is out of Gary. She's doing it big all over the country right now. Who else we got? Air Force, Mr. Strickland. All right, so that's our Air Force personnel we want to give a shout out to and encourage you to join the Air Force. We need more of Air Force personnel. All right, so now I'm gonna take that break and come back in a couple minutes and we'll finish up with the Navy and the Coast Guard. Thank you. All right, all right, all right. We're back for the last section. We're back for the last section. I may have to mute here, but the last section is the Navy and the Coast Guard. Unfortunately, let's start with the Coast Guard first. Unfortunately, I don't have anyone that we know nationwide that's in the Coast Guard. Shame on us. Yes, shame on us. We don't have any Coast Guard members that I can reference for anything. So that means we're probably lacking in a big area when it comes to Coast Guard. And I can't put my finger on why that is, but just know that that's an area that we're weak in. Now I do have linked lifeguards to this because of course being able to swim is critical, paramount. So on the lifeguard side, what I did, I listed on here the places that are important for us to find the Black Coast Guard members. So we have Mississippi, of course, because you have a lot of water, Mississippi. North Carolina, because of the East Coast, South Carolina, New York City, Boston. We have Georgia, that one side of Georgia is by the Atlantic Ocean. Florida, all right. You have Texas and California. So these places is where we should be able to recruit and find retired Coast Guard African American members. That's because that's all coastal, and that's where we ideally will find that group. And I love it if you guys connect us to people like that. That'd be amazing for us as well. All right, so let's go on over to and Coast Guard are linked to 10th graders. So all Coast Guard personnel are linked to 10th graders, and all Coast Guard personnel, they deal with the psychological damage that's in the trauma of our people. That's what the Coast Guard does, block by block. All right, so now. All right. We're back for the last. I knew that was gonna happen. Back for the last section. Let me turn this down here. But the last section is the Navy. Okay, so Coast Guard 10th graders, and they got all the trauma and psychological damage. Now let's get to the Navy. Navy has all 9th graders, all freshmen. So freshmen out the door, the Navy has all of them. The Navy, from a safety perspective, the Navy's job on the block is dealing with restraining orders. And I can't emphasize how many domestic cases of violence we've undergone with people had a restraining order and they still ended up getting killed. As Black people, what we want to do on our blocks in our neighborhood is we want to make certain that we're able to, number one, know what's happening. So that's a sensitive subject because people may not want to share their business. We hope to build that type of relationship and rapport with our people so that they'll be willing to share that information with us so we can be the extra set of eyes for your protection. The person that you have a restraining order against when they enter the block, we want to be able to kind of know that, especially if they're driving. If they're walking, same thing. We know who our 4 houses on the corners are, so that way we can have a force field, if you will. So some of our people that are Navy veterans include myself. I'm a Navy veteran. Mr. Johnson in Chicago, Mr. Coven. We have John in Georgia. We have Miss Tart in Chicago. We got Miss Harris in Georgia. We have Miss Sanders in Chicago. We have Miss Drain in Mexico. We have Mr. Edwards here in Gary. Superstar Sheila in Chicago. Kawani also in Chicago. We have Eduardo out of Chicago. Fabo out of Birmingham. We have Mr. Winston out of Chicago. Miss Murphy out of Indianapolis, Mr. Campbell out of Gary, Miss Frazier out of Chicago. Those are our superstars in the Navy. And you can tell I'm a little biased here. So with the Navy, we want to help get our seniors to help us with this because the Navy is an entity all by itself. So the USS Kearsarge LHD-3, we have them linked to our senior citizens in Chicago's East Garfield Park. The USS Boxer LHD-4 is linked to our people in North Lawndale, 60623. The USS Ronald Reagan CVN number 76 is linked to our Garfield Park community. USS John C. Stennis CVN 74 is linked to our North Austin neighborhood. The USS Abraham Lincoln CVN number 72 is linked to our South Austin neighborhood. And the USS Essex LHD number 2 is linked to our West Garfield Park or North Garfield Park, I should say, and West Humboldt Park community. Then 60651 zip code. Then we have USS Carl Vinson CVN 70 linked to our New City neighborhood in Chicago. The USS Iwo LHD number 7 is linked to our, they call it Auburn Gresham. Zip code is 60620 though. USS George Washington CVN 73 is linked to the Inglewood neighborhood, 60621 zip code. The USS Theodore Roosevelt CVN 71 is linked to the Chicago Lawn, Gage Park, Marquette Park neighborhood. The USS Tahara LHA number 1 is linked to West Inglewood, 60636 zip code. USS Nimitz CVN 69 is linked to 60652 zip code. That is the Washington, hey, why am I drawing a blank? 60653, the Ashburn neighborhood. Sorry about that. I'm looking at myself on the screen and I'm looking at the paper and I'm trying to talk, so I apologize for that. The USS Enterprise, I was on this carrier, CVN 65 is linked to the Washington Park neighborhood, 60615 zip code. The USS Baton, LHD number 5 is linked to today, which is 60617, which is the Washington, which is the Calumet Heights neighborhood. The USS Wasp, LHD number 1 is linked to Chatham. USS Sapon, LHA number 2 is linked to Roseland, 60628 zip code. The USS Kitty Hawk, gotta check. Not sure, Kitty Hawk's still around or has been decommissioned. It's linked to 60637, which is the Woodlawn neighborhood. USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, CVN 69. I was on this one as well. Is linked to 60643 zip code, which is Washington Heights in Chicago. The USS Bonham Richard, I'm butchering his name, apologize for that. LHD number 6 is linked to the South Shore neighborhood, zip code 60649. And the final one is USS Harry S. Truman, CVN 75. It's linked to the Bronzeville neighborhood, 60653. All right, I know that's a lot of information, but the beauty with those linkages is our senior citizens still believe in letter writing, some of them. So those letter writing campaigns going to our people, Black people on those ships, can boost morale. I used to, back in the day, love getting mail from home. It really boosts my morale and spirit. So again, Navy at the beginning of the block, the Air Force at the end of the block, the Navy personnel on the block looking at restraining orders, person at the end of the block looking at the vandalism. That's how we have a block formation that's going to protect us. And so the way we would have done it if we was having a physical convention, Friday, people would have been a travel day. Sunday is a travel day. Saturday is an all-day session. And in that session, we would have been covering military personnel and being safe at night. We would have been covering abusive spouses. We would have been looking at the administration, attention to detail. We've been looking at the food intake. We've been looking at human trafficking, traveling. We've been looking at home repairs for the veterans, vehicle repairs, sexist laws, incarceration of military personnel dealing with student loan debt. We've been talking about education, exercise, emotional health, PSD for them. We've been talking about the parents, if they have children, the ancestors. We've been talking about established media, social media. We've been talking about the theater, the sports, gardening and farming. Where are our ex-veterans in that game? How are they doing? And then we looked at the research, the studying us for profits, the missed opportunities for our young Black teenagers to be exposed to make a sound decision. Also innovation and also technology. So thank you guys for watching. This is going to conclude this year's 2023 military convention. All the names that I read to you guys are the people who are in those professions. I did not bug them about getting on today's Zoom. And here's why. So getting people to do a Zoom or come together in person is not that hard. However, if you bring them together and it's not well thought out, not well planned, and not well attended, you can lose them people because they'll leave with a bad taste in their mouth and won't come back to when you're ready. We haven't, as an organization, we haven't demonstrated the ability to get 1,000 people to send in $1 as a donation. So we're not ready yet. That's why you don't see all the people on the call, because we have to reach that benchmark. That's too minimum for us not to do. And every day that we don't reach that, we wasting a summertime day when the shooting and killing is happening and the world needs what we are offering. But because of Chi-Town and Gary not believing in this $1 piece at scale, it holds back all the other cities where we're trying to build here. My number is 312, area code 405-8844. That's 312-405-8844.